4, 3, 2, 1. I'm John Miglosh of the Wisconsin DMA and the International Society for Strategic Marketing for April 27th. And we're expecting a good level 5 blizzard tomorrow. I thought it was going to be a little flurries on the way to work. And they said 9 inches. 9 inches. It'll probably melt right away. It isn't necessarily catastrophic, but it is interesting, right? Okay, so let's get over here and we're going to straighten out. First, we're going to straighten out yesterday a little bit. Okay, we talked about one-to-one marketing 20 years later, and I contacted David Brock for his input and just to let him know that what I was doing to his article. Now, what's really interesting is that it's not David Brock is not the author. The author is Vince Jeffs, who's more of an IT guy, and I wouldn't have been probably as kind to him. Because conceptually, while one-to-one marketing makes sense, you can't get to one-to-one marketing unless you have cohort populations, unless you have big numbers that start in the same path and then perhaps diverge. And you can then say, well, these kind of people go this way, and these kind of people go this way. And that's how it works. And I got in quite a discussion with David about this topic because he brought up Amazon and how while we might both buy the same book, we might get recommended different books. And most people don't know how that got started on Amazon. The way it got started was that Amazon just built 5 buckets. And they said, the first time someone buys this book and another book, we'll put that second book in one of the buckets. And they filled the 5 buckets. And so then when you looked at the book, you would see people who bought this book also bought. No implication that it made any sense, and some of them didn't make sense. And that was part of the fun. Because all they were claiming was people who bought this book also bought. Now, I'm under the impression that they have a fancy algorithm-driven product recommender now, but I wonder how much more return on investment they actually get out of it. And I would argue that if you had nothing, you would be better off with the first one because it's easily built. You could do it on a spreadsheet. You just say, okay, everybody bought this. What else did they buy? And then then sort it by alpha and look for big groups. I mean, you don't need any kind of computer to do this. There's other ways to do it, but that would be one, just for eyeballing it. Anyway, what's interesting, though, is David Brock did not write this article, even though we've had a lively discussion about it. Vince Jeffs wrote it. I wrote to him today and said he'd probably be on here. And Vince is more of an IT guy if you look up his bio, which is more what I expected because when you get down into the article, they've got complicated diagrams. And, usually strategic thinkers like David wouldn't do diagrams like this. I would never do a diagram like this. Never. It takes an IT guy to do that. And this isn't too bad. I like this, but it's, too fine to print. So anyway, bottom line, here's Vince. But what happened is, this is the interesting part for me, is watch this. Now I'm going to hit, there's a button on Firefox that lets you simplify the article. So it takes out pictures and stuff. Look what happened. It turned the author into Annette Franz. Who knew? Annette, did you know you wrote this? And probably there's no bio at the bottom. But somehow it simplified it. Nope, the bio's gone now. See? It simplified it into a different author. So if you work with customer think, you might want to tell them that. And this is the danger of live broadcasting. You get goofy stuff. Now watch, I'll turn this off. And it goes back to Vince Jeffs. How amazing. Okay, so bottom line on one-to-one marketing, don't try to do one-to-one marketing unless you are a kiosk and you talk to the customers. That is one-to-one marketing. When you try to replicate it with chatbots or with AI, you get silly marketing. You get fake one-to-one marketing. Not good. Not good. But the concept, as David and I talked, we had a great talk. So we should have put it on Skype, and maybe someday we will. Okay, so the next one is yesterday. Go back to my thing here. Yesterday, Joseph, I found this article by Joseph Pisani, and he connected, so we'll write to him about this. And he was covering a trade show, and they showed demos of retail shelves with cameras above them that could measure your emotions and that sort of thing. Privacy people think it's creepy, and as I pointed out yesterday, one of them was Cineplex Digital Media, who said we could tell if someone was wearing glasses or sporting a beard, which in turn can be used to sell ads for new frames or razors. And as I pointed out, people with beards use very few razors. Some don't use any. You'd be better off with a clean-shaven man than a bearded one, which is exactly the challenge. Here, a minivan pulling into a fast food restaurant, for example, might get an ad for a family-sized meal on the video screen. Actually, probably having had several custom vans and minivans, if you got a boatload of kids in the back, you don't want to let any of them talk. You don't want any of them to see any menus whatsoever. So anyway, but in that note, I mentioned the Minority Report. So we're going to go over and watch the video of the Minority Report. Note, Lexus is into product placement. Guinness is. And this is Tom Cruise. I believe he's on the run. And what they're really trying to do in the movie is point out that though he's on the run, they can scan his eyes in the mall, his retinal scan. And I've never gone in for that. But, you know, they have these little cameras. Same idea. Only harder to make work because nobody wants a retinal scan. And he's on the run, and what's interesting to me is that, you know, nobody gets that the store would probably be sharing this with the FBI or something like that. So let's play this.
The road you're on, John Anderton, is the one less traveled. Make sure you follow. Good evening. You can move the old-fashioned John Anderton.
There's the cameras. And they're trying to say that they could promote special videos to him, but of course they could only be a millisecond or two. American Express, would he be having an American Express card as a federal agent? Maybe. Who knows?
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap. How those assorted
Oh, that's right. They call him Mr. Yakamoto because he got some eye implants, literal eyeballs implanted. So they think, oh, that's right. Oh, so that, you know, I've been wrong all these years. They think he's Mr. Yakamoto with the eyes, and so maybe Mr. Yakamoto had the money to go and get eye implants. Okay, now knowing that we started late, we'll just keep going on this because I got a couple minutes to go. Okay, so then I ran across last night a guy talking about the benefits of video marketing. The problem, of course, the challenge of video marketing is making a lot of videos. And so it reminded me of the story of BlendTec. BlendTec is a blender, and here's Tom Dixon. And BlendTec for a couple of weeks was the highest rated video on YouTube. Let's go back in time, 12 years, and see what BlendTec started with. Will it blend? That is the question. You got a wedding present blender and it broke after a week.
Approximately 50 marbles in a jar.
So he got obsessed with
ice cream cycle,
building the best blender.
Cycle we have.
The ice cream cycle. So he hired a marketing exec.
Dust. Don't breathe this.
You could breathe it. It's not silica dust. Yes, it blends. Okay, that video is at 7 million views, and the article is great article in Boss magazine, and he got obsessed with boss from his company headquarters, he got obsessed with making the world's best blender. And he hired a marketing guy, and this is different than the story I had heard. But he hired a marketing guy who saw a bunch of sawdust in one of the labs and said, what's the sawdust for? And they said, well, they grind up brooms and rakes and all kinds of stuff. And so the guy said to Tom Dixon, could I have, what do I've got for a marketing budget? And Tom said, you're the marketing budget. You got nothing. And the guy said, how about $50? And Tom said, okay, I'll give you $50. And he went to Costco and bought some golf balls and some marbles and a bunch of stuff, and came back and said, Tom, I want you to stand in front of this blender and blend something up. And he did. And what was really interesting is I just looked at the consumer blender industry predictions, and BlendTec was the #1 mentioned blender company. They can actually take copper, it sounds like copper ore, and make copper wire to do the windings for their blenders. That's all made in America. I have one at my home. Who would have ever thought I would have an industrial strength blender? But I showed my wife some of these Will It Blend videos, and she wanted that beyond all else. And it really does work. I mean, it is, every morning I wake up to, I don't know what they're doing down there, but it's terrible. But the point is that video can be effective, but it doesn't have to be ultra professional. Apparently they shot a bunch of them, and that's how they got the intro built, because it always stayed the same. And the iPhone, grinding up the iPhone is one of the best ones, pulverizing an iPhone 7. Well, before that, it was just the iPhone. And so, yes, video is wonderful if you can get YouTube to promote it, which they did. And so the rest is history. Amazing, amazing story. So anyway, I hope we had a little more fun today. Not quite so dry as yesterday. But now you know, be careful with your attribution, because computers can change things on you. I'm John.